land on with the Phoenix Suns. Um, you know, first we got to mention Warriors are 16-2, and
Yes.
they're blowing the league away of how good they're playing. They've crossed every check mark out there in this beginning half of the season. But because of that, we're taking a back seat to looking at what the Suns are doing as they're on an incredible 14 games and counting at this moment winning
Yes.
streak. I know they played the Knicks tonight, and then they play the Nets tomorrow. So we'll see if this winning streak keeps on going, which will be impressive if they do. But
Yeah.
let's go get a little bit into it. Brian, what are you thinking about the Phoenix Suns currently?
Man, the Phoenix Suns. I feel like this kind of happens a decent amount with teams that make the finals. We see when a team makes the finals, they're generally start getting a little bit underhyped because we expect so much from them, and also a lot of people were I heard saying over the summer that, oh, it was a fluke. The Lakers should have been there, or the Nuggets should have been there, and like a bunch of other teams. Everyone was kind of saying that this is a fluke. And so far, we've been seeing the Phoenix Suns. They are no fluke. They're only getting better. They're only improving. And all these, I said in a previous pod, I expect them to get better because last season, their team were all young guys, and having that playoff experience and now coming in with a full season of an off season to be able to get better, work on their games. Look at the damage that they're doing. It's really impressive.
Yeah, it's simply incredible some of the things that they're doing in this early half of the season. They're still getting at it in a team oriented way. It's not really clear cut superstars. I do think that they do have two superstars, but some people may regard them a little bit differently
Yeah.
because it's not consistent to what we see off of other superstar teams. They have four guys that are really like putting them on the map, with DeAndre Ayton having a good year, trying to prove he deserves that contract. You take a look at also Chris Paul. He's leading the league in assists currently. Devin Booker is being Devin Booker. And then Mikal Bridges is proven that they made the right decision in giving him that contract. And because of that, you're just seeing the byproducts of that. And other pieces that are just falling into places, how Crowder is still defensive oriented and helping out their organization. In that sense, Cam Johnson still playing a big role as role player. And then, factoring in now Landry Shamet into that is another good role player that they have coming off the bench. And then JaVale McGee is another guy I think rounds off what they're doing and showing just how impressive this first half of the season that they've taken.
Yeah, I think JaVale McGee's definitely been one of the sneakiest signings this offseason. Because, especially, I mean, he was a huge part of the Lakers run when they won the championship. And then just seeing him over the years, after like the Shaqtin' a Fool, you hear Shaq screaming, JaVale McGee, and all this other stuff. Like, he gets kind of touted as a not as good of his player as he doesn't get the respect he deserves. And so far, I mean, well, he's averaging 16 minutes a game. He's having 10 points, 7 rebounds off the bench. Like, what more do you want from a player? So that was an amazing signing because we saw them last season when DeAndre Ayton wasn't on the floor. You had like Frank Kaminsky out there, and that was just kind of wasn't working as well. So having JaVale McGee, really huge. Something that I guess we kind of knew the Phoenix Suns were a good defensive team, but we didn't know that they were this good defensively because right now they're ranked the sixth best offense and the fourth best defense right now. And especially from last season, they were actually the sixth, so they were still good, but they're making that jump a little bit. And it's extremely impressive to see. Chris Paul, he's older. Everyone's expecting his downfall one of these days, but he's just showing, man. This guy can't be stopped. Father Time, so far he's not coming for Chris Paul.
Exactly. And then, I wanted to add is on Twitter, Kurt Goldsberry, he always posts these efficiency landscapes where he breaks down the net ratings. And, there's 4 teams that are in his area of the quadrant of wow, which is first, you have the Warriors, then you have the Nets also there, and you have the Jazz on there. But the second best in net rating is the Suns in the last 15 games. The Suns ranking at seven, a little bit off from what the whole year landscape is, but they're 7th in offense, 2nd in defense, netting them the second best rating. So it's interesting to see their team, like just continuing what they've been doing last year, and then just go into a few other stats that just pop out for these guys. Is their 3rd net rating in points, their 6th net rating in blocks, their 2nd net rating in assists, and then their 6th in free throw percentage. So there's a bunch of things that these guys are doing that just proves like they're here to play ball, and they're here to be in that conversation with being the top team in the West. And that led me into why we started having this conversation is, why do you think long term people are not considering the Suns team to be one of those teams that make it even to the Western Conference final?
I think I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. Of right now, we see the Suns having an amazing start, but in the same exact conference, there's another team having even a better start in the Warriors, and they're missing Klay Thompson. They're not even fully healthy, and there's just so much potential. Steph Curry is doing some amazing Steph Curry things. Yeah, I think I saw, was it yesterday? He's just like dancing all over the court, just throwing up threes, making it, and like this man, it's or not yesterday, but on Wednesday, he's just next level. So I think there's just so much hype around Golden State. And then as well, Utah's not too far off. As I said, that Phoenix was the sixth best offense and then the 4th best defense. Utah is actually the best offense in the NBA, and they're the 8th best defense. So they're right there as well. And there's just so many hurdles that the Phoenix Suns have to get through in the West. You got, of course, I mean, people are still hoping that the Lakers can come back and make an improvement by the end of the season, but I think no matter where the Phoenix Suns actually match, they're gonna have a pretty tough assignment on whoever they verse. What do you think about why people are maybe downplaying the Phoenix Suns?
Then yeah, it goes back to what you were saying as well, is like that shadow that the Warriors are casting on the whole league, not just the Suns right now, with how dominant they've looked. They, even in games where they've lost, they've been in it. In the games that they have won, it's usually either an absolute thrashing of the other team, or it's a come from behind win. I saw a stat where they said the Warriors have had 6 games where they were down by 10 plus, and they won those games. And the rest of the league's percentage on that was 24% of those games they would win, while the Warriors are 100% for those games. That's just insane to hear and think. And because of that, they're giving a blind eye to what the Suns are doing. But I think this is feeding right into the Suns' hands, because their leader, Chris Paul, has shown in every series that he's had or he's been a part of where we're considering the Warriors, he's truly a guy that is not scared of what the Warriors have. He was in 2018 a back injury, or I believe it was a hamstring injury, away from beating a Katie, Steph Curry, Klay Thomas led Warriors. So the guy's just not going to back down and say, "Hey, you know what? The Warriors are back to being the Warriors. I don't think we really have a chance at this." So he's gonna stand out and show the best. He's the best at
Yeah.
what he does at the point guard position. And then, granted, obviously, I don't think that I say that I don't think that he's the better point guard than Steph Curry currently, but I do think that he has a different type of leadership role than Steph Curry has, which is the reason why the Suns are where they are currently. And these guys really do play hard for him. It's like he's a coach, honestly.
Yeah.
But they all come to play. They all play through him, and he's just an integral part of the team. And he's not flashy. That's another reason why I don't think they're not on your Sports Center every day talking about how great um, his 40 points, 50 points, 30 points, 15 assists type games. He's not doing that, but he's every game putting out an effort that leads to them winning.
Yeah, Chris Paul is pretty next level. The one problem with Chris Paul, as you mentioned, in 2018, he was just a little bit an injury away. He kind of what it seems like almost every playoffs, Chris Paul gets injured. Even last season, he was battling injuries the entire finals. He gets banged up a lot. Maybe it's because of it. So I'm sure part of it's age, but at the same time too, just a smaller guy out there with bigger guys, and he's gonna get banged up. It's tough to see that, but I love what you brought up about he kind of impacts the team in a different way, just because of you can't see the little intangibles that he does of how good he is as a leader. Because we see on every single team that Chris Paul goes to, they all exponentially, all the players around him get better. Look what happened when he went to OKC. People were expecting OKC to be terrible, and yet they were kind of a surprise, and they were doing pretty decently well in the playoffs. And they had a lot of their players just blow up that year. And Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, they had he's just such a great leader. And then looking at him move to the Phoenix Suns, they weren't really a great team before Chris Paul actually got there. I actually feel like if Chris Paul wasn't on the Suns last season, I'd probably say Monty Williams 100% gets Coach of the Year. But I feel like it's tough when you have Chris Paul there as well, because I feel like a lot of that credit also goes to Chris Paul himself and not just the coach, because of how good of a leader he is. Something I thought was pretty interesting about the Phoenix Suns, and maybe a reason why they're actually not getting as much hype, is because looking at their wins, or looking at their roster, or not the roster, their schedule, it's actually not as tough as you might think. It's actually been a pretty decently easy schedule, the teams that they verse. I mean, they started off, were pretty rocky, a 1-3 start. They lost to Denver. They had a win against the Lakers, a loss to Portland, who's been struggling, a loss to Sacramento, who's been struggling, and they started 1-3. And then after that, that's when they started to get a ton of wins. But again, those teams that they're beating, Cleveland, the Pelicans, Houston, Sacramento, Portland again, Memphis, they're middle of the road. Houston, Minnesota, San Antonio, Cleveland. These are all the teams that they've been versing recently. So I'm sure I'm sure, we all know Phoenix Suns, they're legit. It's just that I'm sure if they're beating, Golden State, if they're beating Brooklyn, let's see how they do. I mean, I actually kind of expect them to beat New York today, but we'll see how that happens as well. I want to see them beat bigger contenders, and because so far, I guess their biggest win at this whole entire time, and teams that are actually doing decently well, Dallas, they beat twice back to back. Other than that, Denver's kind of been struggling. They've been having a lot of injuries and still missing Jamal Murray, so that they're not 100% healthy. And then after that, Atlanta, who's also been struggling. Other than those guys, they really haven't beaten top talent so far.
Yeah. I kind of want to push back on that a little bit.
Okay.
There's a lot of conversation with like now between them and the Nets a little bit. You hear too, like kind of like a strength of schedule like type of conversation going on where the Nets haven't lost to a team that's under 500, but they have a rocky record against teams that are over 500. I think those things work themselves out
Yeah, for sure.
for both teams. But you still got to appreciate what they were able to do because that is still an NBA team on the other side of the court. My thing is, I don't think you're trying to minimize what they've done,
Sure, yeah.
but I'm sure there are sports pundits that are trying to do that. 15 games, no matter the competition, in my mind, is a lot of games to string along. 14 games are a lot of games to string along into a win streak. So yes, there's going to be a real test for them this weekend. I know you don't think the Knicks will win, but I think they give them a real fight, and maybe they'll chalk up a win. But even if they lose these next two games, are they go 1-1 in these two games? I don't think it changes perception for me about the Suns and where they are currently.
No, I definitely. I'm glad you actually put that emphasis on there, and because I agree with you 100%. Like at the end of the day, no matter who you verse, that's who you got to play against. Everyone has to play these teams eventually. So it's definitely very important to get these wins, and this is actually a big reason why I'm like a little bit lower on the Knicks recently because they actually had a pretty easy start. It's just they weren't getting those wins that you're supposed to win. And that's why I'm pretty down on them. But I mean, Phoenix is doing exactly what they're supposed to do. So definitely excited to see how they progress going forward. Do they keep this up for the rest of the season? Does Golden State keep it up for the rest of the season? And how this conversation plays as time progresses.
I agree.